When the storm comes, and it will it make you or will it break you? So the storm isn't coming for everybody. For some, it's already here. And it's easy to say to get ready to be ready when the storm is coming, but not when it's already consuming your life. And right now, somebody that's watching this, or maybe needs to watch this, is feeling it. Or maybe you've already felt this in the past. Maybe you've had more month than you've had money. Maybe you're tired, but you can't sleep. Or maybe you just want to get up and do something, but you just can't find the motivation to do it. See, just like the storms we have on Earth, natural disasters, economic downturns, in the wild woke society we live in now, there's a storm that we don't talk about in the public. And that's what's going on the inside. See, someone right now is battling cancer, they're fighting addiction, or they're being crushed by the weight of their depression that makes just getting out of bed hard. And that storm is real. This storm kills people every single day. But the question is, are you going to let it kill you? See, the hard pill to swallow is that that storm is never going to go away. In fact, it's going to keep coming in different forms, no matter your marital status, how much money you got in the bank account, or even how close you are to God. You're always going to end up with some kind of battle. But you don't got to drown in it. You don't got to let it kill you. In fact, Ernest Hemingway said, the world breaks everyone, and afterward, many are strong in the broken places. Lincoln also said, I will prepare, and someday my chance will come. And Michael Myron told me that your day is coming whether you like it or not, so you better be ready. In other words, the storm is not going to wait until you feel strong. Opportunities are going to not wait until you feel ready. And life's never going to stop moving just because you're not prepared for it. It's going to keep coming. It's going to keep rolling. That storm's going to keep coming in. It don't matter if it's a hurricane, category 1 right now offshore of Florida. If that water is warm, it's going to intensify whether you board up your house or not, or you evacuate or not. It's going to come through and destroy everything in its path. And today I'm going to show you exactly how to stop waiting for your life to get easier and instead to rise up to be stronger, even in the middle of the storm. Not after it passes, not after things get better, but right now in the chaos you're living through. Whether you're a person of faith or you never step foot in a church or never open up a Bible, what I'm going to share with you works because it's built on the principles that govern how human beings are actually function. And we stop waiting for rescue and start assessing the strength that God has already placed within us. So if you're ready to stop being the victim of your circumstances and start becoming the architect of your comeback, stay with me to the very end because this might be the most important 20 to 30 minutes you're going to spend all day. So the question, like I said, it's not if it's going to come. It's whether or not you're going to be ready when it does. And more importantly, whether or not you're going to use this storm to become stronger. I know someone out there's probably thinking, who's this guy, right? What's he been through? He looks young. How does he know about life? What do you know about storms? What are you in your 20s? Yeah, all these things I always hear. But let me tell you, when I was growing up, life was not easy. When I was a teenager, I had 2 kids by 16. I grew up in a broken household that was broken by poverty and drugs and domestic violence. I personally started using drugs, selling drugs by the age of 13, and I watched my stepbrother die at 16. I pretty much lived in a storm from 12 to 17. By 16, I moved out of my mom's house, moved in with my girlfriend, which is now my wife. We had 2 kids at the time, like I said, from high school. I worked every single day, going to school, trying to finish high school, trying to better my life, to not end up back on the streets, to stop using drugs, to stop drinking so much. Now, to be honest, when I was about 14, 15, I was an alcoholic for sure. I smoked a lot of weed, I drank vodka every day, and I did some other drugs I should have never done. So that came with, when I was trying to quit, plenty of sweat-driven nights, nightmares, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, sick, all of these things. And by the end of the day, though, I pushed through it. And just when I got out of that, I started hitting the financial troubles. I thought joining the military would be my way out. I thought I'd make good money there and everything would be great, but I ended up upside down in debt. I bought a car that was a total lemon, completely broke down on me, had a family to provide for, had to get rides to work, rides to the grocery store, felt completely emasculated as a man that I couldn't do what I needed to do, and I couldn't even go get another job because I'm in the military. I signed my life away. I signed my rights away. I'm active duty. But guess what happens while I'm in the military? My health starts getting attacked. I get hurt. I get injured, and they forced me to retire early. And just when I figured out I'm going to be on my own, I can get a job, I was back in financial trouble. Living on savings, on credit cards, personal loans, maxed out all my cards, took my credit score down to a 400, couldn't even make money to pay them back. I couldn't get a job. I'm working Grubhub, driving around all day long. I had 4 kids, 3 dogs, a lot of responsibility, and no money. So there's something about storms. Believe me, I've been through a lot. But what I never did is let the storm control who I was. And I don't say any of that for sympathy, like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. No, I'm simply saying this because you have to understand that there are plenty of different kinds of storms in your life, but you have to know exactly what you're dealing with because not all storms are going to be the same. And you can't fight what you don't understand. So far I've identified the four kinds of storms that happen to me, right? But these also happen to everybody in their lifetime. It's going to happen at some point. Something is going to come up. Something's going to pop up. A storm's going to roll in. But what's important is that you're to understand the Bible doesn't promise us a storm-free life just because you're a Christian or because you believe in God or even if you don't believe in God. Guess what Jesus said? He made it very clear as a Christian, you're going to be living the complete opposite of storm-free. He said in John 16:33, in the world you will have trouble. But take heart, I have overcome the world. He didn't say that you won't have trouble. He said you will have trouble. And that first storm that I'm going to identify is going to be that financial trouble, a financial storm, right? The reality is that 3 out of 4 Americans are struggling living paycheck to paycheck. And if they didn't get paid for 1 week, their life would be devastated. And right now, today's economy is no better, right? Things are very expensive. Credit card debt is at record highs. We got college graduates that are homeless. They can't afford to pay rent. And that once American dream of working, retiring, buying a house, and raising your family there, it's almost a complete unreality for the majority of people. But I want you to think about a certain person. There's a widow in 1 Kings 17, where she's down to her last meal. She has a handful of flour, a little bit of oil, and this guy walks up to her out of the wilderness, and she's gathering a few sticks to go home, and she's going to make some food for herself. And she declares that they're going to eat and they're going to die. And she gave up. She totally gave up. She was ready to prepare that last meal, but God uses that exact moment of financial desperation for the miracle. Her oil and flour never ran out because she stayed faithful to what the man of God called her to do. Elijah said to make me a cake with your last. See, she didn't even get to eat. He ate it. The last thing she had, but guess what? She listened to God, she was faithful, and her oil never stopped running. Now, the second storm we're going to have is going to be a relationship storm, right? We look at America's divorce rates through the roof. I grew up in a broken household. I'm sure plenty of you probably have. And, it's going to be higher probably as the years come, unfortunately. And there are more broken families right now than ever. There are more kids being raised in broken households than ever. There's been so much betrayal between friends and family or even business partners. People are living on social media and not knowing how to actually live in reality. They just live in this life of isolation on their phones. And many people are going to feel completely alone because of it. Even when they're surrounded by others, they don't even know how to socialize because they're so indulged in their electronic devices. But this also reminds me of another person, David. When his son Absalom turned against him in 2 Samuel 15, David had to flee to Jerusalem, his own city, because his son was trying to kill him. In Psalms 55:12 and 14, David cries out, for it is not an enemy who reproaches me, but it was you, a man of my equal, my companion, my acquaintance. And even the man after God's own heart, he faced a relationship betrayal of his own son, and even King Saul, the guy that called him, the guy that needed him to play music. He still tried to get him killed. David had to duck from a spear. Now, the third thing that we're going to have attacks from is going to be our health. And the reality is that this is where the mental crisis in our country is. This is where numbers are at an all-time high. Because of everything, this feeds into people's drug addictions, alcohol abuse, domestic violence. It's destroying families and communities hands down. And I know, where it comes from because I understand it. I've lived through it. I've been through it. I know people who died of overdoses. I've seen people grow up without their parents. I understand drugs in and out, and I understand how bad it is and how terrible and life consuming it can be. But on top of the self-inflicted crisis of drugs, we also have to look at what we eat, what we put into our body, what our diets are as Americans. We lead the numbers in chronic illnesses and obesity. We are the most unhealthy country, but the richest country, the most advanced country. But yet we have people dying of all these chronic illnesses because of what we can ingest. And when you combine all these problems, it leads into a deep anxiety and depression that can only actually carry on as just a generational curse being passed to your kids or grandkids. Obesity isn't just something that stops with you. You pass that gene on to your children, and you pass the depression on to your children. And if they don't get rid of it, they don't end that curse, it passes on to your grandchildren. Now the question is, do you want these curses to pass, or do you want to be the chain breaker? Do you want to break these chains so your kids and grandkids can live free? And a good example of this that we have on our attack of our health is Job. Not only did he face that financial storm, his health got attacked from the enemy as well. He literally got hit with almost every single storm that you can ever get hit with. He lost his friends. His wife told him to curse God and die. He was physically, emotionally, and spiritually drained, but he didn't let that storm consume him. He declared in Job 19:25-26, he said, I know that my Redeemer lives, and he shall stand at last on the earth. And after my skin is destroyed, this I know. That is my flesh, I shall see God. He didn't let any one of these trials take over. He didn't let any external circumstances dictate his future or his internal circumstances. That's what leads us into that fourth storm, which is that identity, right? How many people today struggle with identity? All of these things are happening to us. We don't know who we are. We don't know what we should be doing. We're constantly trying to get in where we fit in and wonder why we feel so out of place. There are parents who push education on their children to make them get student loans for a career path they don't even know what they want to take. Now they change major 5, 6 times. College debt keeps racking up. Before you know it, they could have been a doctor all the time they've been in, all the money they've spent. But here they are not knowing what to do. Now they have a job that they hate and they want to retire by 65, hoping they don't raise that age. They're living in a broken system that is literally failing as we speak. But what do people do? They just keep living through the motions because they're trapped in the identity that society has created for them. Instead of them, being who they need to be and who God's called them to be, they're constantly trying to prove to themselves and to the world that they're something that they're not. And the world problem here, and the real problem, is that they lack purpose. Because people don't know who they are because they're indoctrinated from an early child. I'll say 99% of people who have had or had dealt with this, the reality is that you know whose you are. If you don't know whose you are, you won't know who you are. And until you know whose you are, you're never going to know who you are. So you have to understand that God has placed a uniqueness inside all of us. It is different from everybody. No one else can be who you are. You can't be who somebody else is. You might be able to do certain things that they've done. You might be able to, acquire certain things that they have. But internally, you can never be who they are, and they can never be who you are. You are special the way God made you. Let's look at Moses in this instance. According to scripture, right, he spent 40 years thinking that he was an Egyptian. He thought he was an Egyptian prince. But then what happened after he killed, one of the Egyptians? He fled, he ran. So he spent another 40 years in Midian living as a shepherd. And then he found God in a burning bush on Mount Sinai. Now you would think at 80 years old, he might be pretty wise. He might have a strong sense of identity. But even Moses, a man who's seen God without being put to sleep like Abraham, or being put to death, or his eyes being blinded, he still questioned God. He said, who am I that I go to Pharaoh? Right? That's an identity problem. But it gets even better because he didn't just think that, he wasn't something or didn't have credentials. He asked, what is your name? Who should I say sent me? And what happened after that? God gave him straight, direct authority. And he said, you say that I am who I am. But then he worried about being rejected. He stated, oh, but what if they don't believe me? Or what if they don't listen to me? And what does God do? He shows him the power by turning his staff into a serpent. Now you would think, for sure, right? He has a strong identity now. God literally is showing this guy the power. He turned a stick into a snake, and he turned back into a stick again. He's burning it from in a bush. He's giving him all these words of wisdom. But no. Moses has the nerve to make another excuse. He said, but I'm slow to speak, but I stutter. Now, God is starting to get a little aggravated, right? And you can understand why. I would get aggravated. He said, who has made man's mouth? See, we're questioning God's perfection when we keep making excuses by saying, but this or but that. But God doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. And all this is going on, and Moses still does not want to listen. Now he says, I need somebody with me. I'm not capable enough. And the Bible literally says the Lord's anger was kindled. He was like, all right, hold on. Let me take a deep breath, right? He was like, all right, look, I'm going to point you, Aaron, right? This is your brother you never met before. This is going to be your spokesman. Now, after all of this, Moses finally goes on the mission. But guess what? Just because God was with him, did that mean that it was going to be a smooth ride? No more storms would come? He's just going to walk up into Pharaoh's house and say, hey, man, I'm here for the Hebrews. I'm going to catch you later. I'm going to take them with me. I'll see you later. Maybe next time we'll grab dinner. No, he had some obstacles. He had to face them. He had to get over them. But these were opportunities for him to express and show what God's power was. This is where most people make the mistake of thinking they can avoid these storms, and it's just impossible. The goal is to use them to build strength, not to let them hold you up. You have to build this strength to get past what's going to come next. So Moses learned something that took him 80 years to figure out. But I want to give you 4 pillars that's going to help you access that same strength without waiting 80 years. These are not complicated theories. They're practical tools that work whether you're facing the financial problems, relationship problems, health crisis, or identity confusions. Use these 4 pillars to be able to weather and overcome the storms that are going to come. The first pillar, and the most important pillar, is to reframe your storm. When something happens, don't automatically think, why is this happening to me? Think, what is this happening for? We have 2 ways to process our lives, through a negative lens or a positive lens. But the choice is up to you. And if you go negative, it's going to go to doubt, it's going to go to fear, it's going to go to anxiety, it's going to produce bad fruit. If you go positive, you're going to get a belief, you're going to get a faith, you're going to get a fire, and you're going to produce good fruit. And whenever Moses, in his stutteringness, he said, this disqualifies me, God said what? Who made man's mouth? Because your weakness might be exactly what God wants to use. God wanted him to talk to Pharaoh, and he said, I have a stuttering problem. Romans 8:28 says that all things work together for the good of those who love God. Not all things are good, but God can work through all things. The next pillar is control. You can only control what you can. You cannot control other people. You cannot control the economy. You cannot control your past mistakes. But what you can control is your daily habits, your responses, and your relationship with God. And even Jesus in the garden said, for not my will, but yours. So he acknowledged what he couldn't control, taking action on, and what he could control. And for our response, we need to focus on that and not our circumstances. Now, the third pillar is going to be being grateful for the small things. When Nehemiah rebuilt Jerusalem's walls, he celebrated when they reached half of its height. He didn't wait for the completion or to acknowledge the progress. Can't we change your whole life in one day? No. But what can you do? You could take a small step. You can't save $10,000 overnight unless you make $10,000, but you can save $10, right? You can't heal your marriage, your relationship, or your friendships overnight, but you can have the honest conversations. You can get down to a human level. And Zechariah 4:10 asks, who despises the day of small things? See, progress, not perfection. You have to create those small wins to accumulate into massive change. In fact, Jim Rohn says a small win is powerful, but a small win repeated, that's where the magic begins. And that small win is going to be fuel that habits in your confidence. And the fourth and final pillar, but probably one of the most powerful pillars and vital pillars, is serving other people. Now, this sounds crazy when you're struggling, when you're going through a storm. How can you serve somebody else? But it's one of the most powerful strength builders. Even when Jesus was grieving John's death, he still served the crowd that followed him. Mark 6:34 says he had compassion and taught them. Now, when you serve in your storm, it shifts your focus from your problems to your solutions. It reminds you that you have value to offer. You start changing your paradigm to positivity instead of negativity. Now, these 4 pillars only work if you use them. Think about it. What good is a roof with no shingles? So let's go over 3 quick actions you can take today, tonight, tomorrow morning, because what I don't want you to do is leave this video on pure motivation and then lack change in your life. The first thing I want you to do is write down something you're grateful for in the trial, the season, the past trial you had. Reflect on something and write down something right now that you're grateful for. If you do it while life is good, you'll appreciate what you have now. And it might even sound weird, but even in your financial crisis, your relationship issue, or your health problem, find one thing in this storm that is teaching you and revealing to you about your strength. What did you overcome that you didn't think you ever could? What happened? And you're like, I don't know how that even happened. By the grace of God, I paid that bill, or I got this check, or I closed this deal, or I got this overtime. What is it? Be grateful for that. Maybe it's showing your friends who your real friends are. Maybe God's showing you who you need to remove out of your life. Maybe it's teaching you to trust God differently. Maybe it's just revealing the strength that you didn't know you had. 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 18 says, "In everything give thanks, not for everything, but in everything." Now, next, I want you to identify one small action you can take tomorrow. Don't try to solve your whole life tomorrow. Just pick one small step toward that breakthrough. Maybe make a schedule for the week ahead. Add a healthy habit like drinking a glass of water before bed or first thing in the morning. Start praying and asking God to reveal your purpose if you're struggling with that identity. Whatever it is, start taking small actions because it's going to create momentum, and that momentum is going to create hope, and that hope is going to create more strength. Now, the third thing I want you to do is I want you to reach out to someone who might need encouragement. This is where the magic happens because even in your storm, you can be somebody's umbrella. So text somebody right now who's going through a hard time. Check on a friend you haven't talked to in a long time. Engage with the homeless person outside and pray with them. Acts 20:35 says, "It is more blessed to give than to receive." When you encourage others, you encourage yourself. But before we end this video, I want you to know something. I want you to know that your breakthrough isn't about you. It's not about you getting through your storm. This is going to be a ripple effect that's going to happen to you that you may not even see. Your children are watching, and more is caught than taught. They're going to see how you handle the storm. And you're teaching them to either be victims or victors. They're learning from whether you run from difficulty or you use it to be stronger. Don't quit. Don't give up. Push through. If you don't know, find out. Be willing to learn. Be willing to take the risk. Take the step. Do what you need to do. Someone in your circle needs to see that transformation is possible. Your comeback story might just be the hope that they need in order to get over their own storm. And all the future generations after you are going to be depending on you to break that cycle, to break that curse, to break that defeat, to break that poverty, to break that addiction, to break that dysfunction in your family line. Right? Ed Milet says the power of one more. And you're the one. You're the one. You're the one. Because your storm isn't about your strength. It's about your testimony. You're not just surviving the storm. You're being prepared for your purpose. And the woman at the well didn't just get her life changed. She went back to see the whole city and tell everybody about Jesus. Her personal breakthrough became breakthrough for others. And I hope this message serves you. I hope you find great peace in this. I hope you find something valuable in this. Go out there, have a great rest of your day, rest of your night. Whenever you're seeing this, please like, comment, subscribe to the channel, share with somebody you love. Stay blessed by the best, and remember that it's up to you.